tonight we have a guy, Dan Mohler, who I don't know super well, but we've got to know each other recently, and he's got a lot of great experience, very hands-on, very in the trenches kind of guy, a lot of sales and media experience. You were at Move and Fandango, so I'm excited to hear your story a little bit more in detail. And are you cool with sort of questions? Some people like to not do it, like to give the whole spiel, and then you're good with the interaction. So if you have questions, he's open to do it. Any other announcements you want to make? No? Okay. All right, guys, take it away.
Yeah, by all means, as I speak tonight, if you've got any questions, let me know. And to that point, there is a card on your chair, and I want to get a little bit of a pulse for the different companies we have, not companies, but the different industries that you guys work with. I could do a show of hands and stuff like that, but I actually want to get a little bit deeper, but actually not intrude on your privacy. So this will be kind of anonymous. Certainly as the evening goes on, if you want to share with us some of your idea or something you're working on, would love to have that feedback, love to comment and react to maybe things that I'm doing. But this is kind of an anonymous way. As a matter of fact, this is what I had in mind. I don't want this to take very long, but I want you to put just one word on the card that represents the kind of business that you are in. And believe it or not, this is actually 6 of the partner companies that are actually here at Amplify. So just write on the card, and I've got a bunch of pens here. With a big business. All of them. There was someone. Maybe it was crowdfunding. I'm not sure what that was. I thought I had pens. My pen's cruising. Cruising. Has everybody got a pen?
Does anybody need a pen?
Sarah has more pens.
So here are my pens. Here we go.
What business are you
Give me the pen. And what I'm going to do is just collect them and quickly just read off a bunch of the businesses that we have represented here, and so that you also know who's, Amplify is all about sharing information and learning from one another. And so we're going to do that in a little microcosm of this evening. Let me know as you get it. Okay, so I'm going to start reading them already. We've got media, we've got consulting, we've got communications, we have social networks. Who else? I don't need to. Here, you collect them, Liz. Thank you. Here's some more. Oh no, those are empty. One of them's empty. We have building shit. Somebody's building shit, which is always good to have somebody building shit. Yeah, I think so. Okay. We have fashion. We have finance, raising a family. I love it. Media again. Gaming, creative collaboration. We have next generation TV, more media. Film project management tools. We have, someone wrote the name on it, design studio as well. Okay, did I get them all? Okay. This is exactly what I wanted. Just give us a feel of what we got. We got food, we've got cruising, we've got marketing. Cruising can mean a lot of things, right? We've got ebooks, we've got accelerating, we have freelance consulting, and entertainment as well. So anyway, I wanted to get a feel for that. As I said, as I share with you my thoughts, you have a question or something you want to add or share with us some of what you're doing maybe at the end. Anybody that wants to talk about what's going on, that'd be great. Thank you. I'm sure this wasn't yours, but I'll read it out. Online dating. Okay. All right, so I've been in Los Angeles for about 25 years, and I've worked for a lot of different startups, and I'm not going to talk about them all, but this is sort of a chronological order, and I wanted to throw them up there quickly because there may be a few that you know somebody who worked there, or you're curious about one of these companies. But the 3 I'm actually going to end up talking about is the Weather Channel, Fandango, and Launch. Launch was a music company that became the music division of Yahoo. But I also wanted to share with you the perspective in which I come from, because my role at all those startups was similar in that I was running the sales divisions. I have a background in sales, We're going to talk about the Weather Channel in a second, and it really started there. And so I've had a lot of fun working for different startups that are based here in Los Angeles, mostly based here in Los Angeles, and building teams. As a personal note, I'm passionate about the sport of lacrosse. I played, I am a coach, I have 2 sons that are playing, and this is my representation about team building, because I was building teams within these startups that were the sales teams that had to go out there and get the revenue. I realized, another reason I wanted to get the cards, I realized that some of your businesses may not necessitate or may not need an outside sales team to go take it to the marketplace. But there are a lot of startups or a lot of companies that do need a great sales organization to go out there to do that. But this is also a representation about what you're doing. We're going to talk a little bit later about hiring and how important that is. And so it's all about team building. It's all about the people. So that's a key factor, and that's the perspective that I come from. So these are the 3 we're going to talk about, as I mentioned: the Weather Channel launch, which became the music division of Yahoo, and Fandango. So let's start with the Weather Channel. And the Weather Channel obviously is special to me because that was the first company I worked for, and it was a startup. I was back there in the madness of the cable days, and it was, I think, all the passions I learned and all the excitement that I appreciate today about a startup happened with the Weather Channel. And it was, I've worked for a lot of wild ideas. You're going to learn about 2 of the others, but it was very, very hard. And the reason why, you almost have to have a little history about the cable industry. This is in chronological order how the ad-supported network started. There were many, many others. Some didn't survive, some didn't make it, but these are sort of the big boys. So ESPN was first, then CNN, MTV, and the Weather Channel. And as you can see, the concept or the idea as you approach the cable operator, because I was in affiliate sales or distribution initially. Okay, a whole sports channel, that makes sense. Okay, news, we're going to cover it all the time because breaking news happens. And then a music channel, that makes a whole lot of sense. And then there I was coming in and saying, oh, how about giving us a channel for the weather? You know, so literally I would walk into the lobby of the cable operator and see, maybe I even knew the ESPN rep, he's walking out, how did it go? And the MTV guy was there next day, and I come in and say, how about a channel for the Weather Channel? He go, what? Let me get this straight. You're going to do weather 24 hours a day? That'll never work. Lee, get out of my office. So I learned a whole lot about overcoming objections, getting meetings with people who did not want to, and believing in an idea. As we started, we knew that it was going to make sense. It was not sexy, but the weather wasn't going anywhere. And the notion, as cable exploded, the notion that to have a devoted channel to weather, no, we did not expect people to watch the Weather Channel 24 hours a day, but we are going to make it available to you 24 hours a day. As the weather impacts you, then it'll be there. And of course, in retrospect, it's highly successful. It was bought by NBC about 5 years ago. It's also probably one of the most profitable television enterprises ever, because it did, and I'll try not to get too far off on the Weather Channel, I can answer questions later, but it didn't cost that much to run it. The studio was tiny, it was automated, the information we got from the government. When they got more successful, they started producing television shows and stuff like that. So all along the way on my comments, there's going to be little lessons that I want to pass on to you. I think the key one, as I thought about it for the Weather Channel, was the simplicity of the idea. And there's so many ideas, and we've got a lot of great ideas that are spawning out of this group here. Sometimes it's the most simple idea that makes the most sense, and you stay focused on a fundamental need that the consumer has, and you'll be highly successful. Again, the Weather Channel worked because you didn't need to watch the weather 24 hours a day, but it was available there to you. The other that it taught me at the early stages of my career was about healthy competition and the energy you get from playing the underdog role. And what I mean by healthy competition is you benefit greatly from a situation in which you're highly competitive. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to talk a lot tonight about seeing when others can't see. And when you can't see, it's because you've gotten so big and you're dominating a position, so you can't see the future. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. But healthy competition, so when we got our legs, and I went into ad sales, I left distribution, went into ad sales, and that's actually what had me dance across the country from Atlanta, Chicago to LA. And so we started selling hard against CNN, because the advertisers we were after really were not ESPN or MTV, but it was CNN, and they skewed very old. We started to get data about our audience. Ours was more outdoor active. We did very well with moms, whatever. So it was healthy competition against CNN and others, and we had to bust our ass. We were literally the underdog. And again, the energy of the underdog is great. I was thinking about this point and saying, like, well, nobody sets out to say, like, I hope I can be the underdog. That'll be a lot of fun, right? No, you don't want to be the underdog if you can help it. But startups, for the most part, are underdogs, right? You know, typically you're trying to do this different than someone else. And it'll give you great energy. And we'll talk about why it gives you that energy and that you've seen something that the big boys, the incumbents, haven't seen. So those are the key things for the Weather Channel. The other, as I started to allude to, I feel like I'm standing in front of you guys, is this inability for the incumbents to see the great new idea. And so while we're talking about the cable industry, Sports Illustrated was arguably the greatest brand about sports, certainly on the print side. There was certainly sports on television for a long time ago. But Sports Illustrated, why could they not visualize as cable was coming and the satellites were going up? Why couldn't they visualize ESPN? Or for that matter, maybe ABC Sports will eventually bought them, but one of the major sports networks. Rolling Stone magazine, great magazine, still doing well. This is a recent cover shot. But why couldn't they visualize a music channel all the time? And originally MTV, if you remember this, was all about music videos originally. And then the broadcast networks, they had bureaus all over the country. They could have launched CNN a whole lot easier than Ted Turner, who launched it, which was a very expensive endeavor, but they couldn't see it, right? Because they're too big. So we're going to talk about this theme more as we go along. The next startup that I went to after the Weather Channel, actually it was right after the Weather Channel. It was a funny story. I'd been with the Weather Channel a long time. I'd been in California for a little while, and this was pre to the first big .com boom. And I stuck my head up and said, wow, I was traveling to Seattle and San Francisco all the time, and I go, wow, there's a lot going on out here. And this is a CD-ROM publication, and I'm going to share some with you in a second. And so you would put it in your computer. It was like a magazine. It came in subscription. And the things we could do in this prior to the proliferation of broadband was very cool and sort of the precursor to what's going on with TV now. But the story's funny about how I'm at a conference at UCLA, and there's a panel, and 3 people are presenting. 2 of them are web-based, don't remember what they are. The third is the guy from Launch. I don't think he hid the fact that he was running it off of his CD, through his disc player or whatever in his computer. But when he started to present all these colors and video coming at it, there was an ad for Apple Computer, there was an ad for Nissan. I go, wow, this thing is ad supported. So I ended up talking to them, and then I joined them to build out and run their national sales team. So let me pass these around just so I do want them back. I tried recently on this computer. You can't play them. It's pretty old technology. The last one, sorry, and I do want them back anyway. But pass these around. Let me take this one for a second. This was we started with magazine size. So we were actually in magazine racks at music stores because we wanted it to be picked up with Billboard magazine or whatever. And then eventually we went to these discs, and then this was at the end. We were mailing them as cheaply as we possibly could, so that's why this one's here. But we have bands in the late 90s like Cracker and Jewel. Matt Damon is on one cover. So we did music, movies, and games. And it was a lot of fun. The other interesting and challenging story was that the internet was starting to explode at this point, or certainly start to grow. And so ad agencies were designating their interactive team, and that was typically the college graduate who started last week and said, all right, you're responsible for buying media on the internet, and we're going to give you $1,000 to spend or something like that. So we'd knock on the door. They say, oh, go talk to the internet guys, and they had no money. And then we'd say, well, we've got this CD-ROM publication. They go, what? CD-ROM publication? We don't have a budget for CD-ROM. I know, but take a look at it. It's really cool. And so that usually didn't go very well. So we started going after television budgets because we were running, again, I'm sorry I can't show you a demo of this, but we were running television ads in this in 97 and 98, 99 until broadband was strong enough and they stopped producing it. So I closed huge deals with Toyota and with Ford and Jack Daniels. We were doing all this great stuff in it. So it was a whole lot of fun. And it was one of those things where if you finally broke through and got the audience with the right decision maker, and we would go right after clients as well, you'd see it. I had to travel with a projector if I was doing a presentation in a conference room, because projectors weren't that prevalent for a laptop back in those days. But you needed to show it to them. You put it up on the screen. So great content, great concept. One of the key things about it was that we were talking to them, again, sort of ahead of our time. We were seeing it before others could, about this relationship that the consumer had with the computer. And we were, as we went to talk to the television buyers, we were saying, all right, we're television through the computer, and that didn't really exist at that time. It certainly wasn't coming through the dial-up lines. And so we talked a lot. We actually coined a phrase, choice-based impressions, where the table of contents was actually a city, a very colorful city, and you clicked on different things, and it was blue screen interviews with Cracker and Matt Damon. Shaq was in one of our issues. But we talked to them a lot about sitting at the computer and not on the sofa drinking a beer and watching, but this attentive level. And so it was the precursor really to broadband and how television would be sold. So that was a key factor to our success in that regard. So the other key lesson from this, my visual here, is just we were at a time when the internet was exploding. We had very smart people, a guy named Dave Goldberg who worked at CBS Records for a while. He visualized this whole thing, and he was like, well, there's a better format for us to do this than the internet. Let's do this through a CD-ROM. While I was there, we actually went public, so it was a part of that whole ordeal in building out the sales organization. And then eventually, actually it was during the crash in like 2000 or something like that we were sold to Yahoo. And they became, for a long time, the brand was strong enough that Yahoo kept them as launch within Yahoo. And a couple of years ago, I'm not sure when it was, they changed to Yahoo Music. But it was one of the first acquisitions by Yahoo at the time where they felt the brand was strong enough and had enough following that they'll keep it as launch. So that's the update on launch there. Oh, okay, one other thing. Again, as I said, a recurring theme of my comments tonight is about not being able to see it coming and not be able to, the incumbents not being able to see what's going to happen next. So this is the Sony Walkman. Certainly transistor radios go way back, but this was the first time you could have your own music that you love on a cassette tape or make a mixtape or whatever and take it with you. And it was a highly successful product. Some of you may be old enough to have owned one at one time. Then Napster came. You know Napster. Napster still exists today, but they facilitated this wild frenzy of file sharing, which changed the music industry forever. And Sony Music was a part of this madness. And the short story, well, it's not a short story, but the labels obviously were not going to put up with that. And there's some justification for that in the sense that the artists needed to get paid for what was going on, and they were not. So they squelched file sharing. But while that's all going on, Napster didn't really latch onto it. They still have a good product today. But Sony Music, which also owned the Sony Walkman, did not have the vision to figure out how to put these three things together and see what was going to happen next with portability. So of course, Steve Jobs visualized that. And it's interesting if you've read, everybody knows Steve Jobs, but you read the book. They were a computer company when he decided, well, all right, we can do this music thing better. And he certainly was watching what was going on in Napster. And obviously he came up with this. So coming out of Launch, which was a music company that I worked for and had fun with, the iPod was created, and it's changed everything forever. So again, as you think about your startups, one that you've already got going, one that's just in your mind, it is all about seeing what the incumbents cannot see and what's going to work for you guys. All right. So let's go to Fandango next. Fandango was a lot of fun because, as you remember, I came to Southern California with about the most non-Hollywood television property that could possibly exist, which was the Weather Channel. Funny side story, the movie Twister came out while I was still there, and I sent one of my salespeople up to Hollywood and said, we're going to get an ad buy from them on Twister for sure. They said, no, we're not interested. They wouldn't even, Twister would not even buy the Weather Channel. So what are you going to do? So Fandango was a whole lot of fun, and there was a lot of learning there about the movie distribution business. I was brought on to a commerce site that was built sell movie tickets, to be a middleman and get a fee. You guys probably all use Fandango now. But I was brought on because people realized, okay, we can have a secondary revenue source that will generate more money. As I understood it, before I got there, there was, I think even our head of marketing was like, no way, we're putting ads on here. That'll kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Nobody will buy movie tickets. And obviously that was not the case. So I was brought on to build out the national sales team. And this is recent screenshots. This is from the website. This is obviously the tablet and the iPhone. So it was I don't think when Fandango was started, anybody visualized how much smartphones and tablets were going to change things. But this whole idea about, okay, broadband is on the way, it's growing rapidly, and the society in general was getting more comfortable with commerce and transactions. So the machine was rolling. And I could talk a lot about Fandango, I could answer questions on it more, but it was complicated because our funding actually came from the theater chains and some VC money. There is a contentious relationship, if you don't know this, between the theater chains and the studios. And it goes on a lot today because the studios are not making the money they used to on DVDs. And so they want to close the gap. So I learned a lot about what was going on in the movie industry from what they called an exhibiting standpoint. But what they hired me to do was the audience was now growing. It wasn't that big, but we said, okay, let's go talk to the studios. It's like a point of purchase display, right? They're coming in. Although the percentage of our traffic that was looking up showtimes and didn't buy was still very high. As a matter of fact, there was a smaller percentage. The home run was when they came in, generated some ad impressions, and also bought a ticket because we were making revenue on both sides of that. So this is a screen grab that came just from Friday. And I learned a lot about, we all know this as a consumer, but Fridays are absolutely critical for every movie. And so initially, there's a little bit of a demand pricing lesson that I'll share with you now. When we first started, we weren't very big, and believe it or not, the studios weren't buying us very much. They were buying bigger, they need big audience, so they were buying Yahoo and AOL and MSN and their home pages. So we said, all right, well, what if we roadblock our homepage on a Friday? Will you buy us then? They said, all right, yeah, that makes sense, and you're selling a few movie tickets. So we were selling just small campaigns, and all we gave them was the home. We try to sell them other stuff, and they go, no, all I want is your homepage on Friday. How much is that going to cost me? All right, it'll cost you this much. So they were giving us little buys. We got more and more successful. There's only 52 Fridays in the year. A lot more movies than that are released. Then when you consider that most big budget movies are released from May to August, and then November, December for the holidays, you're now down to about 20 Fridays. And we said, all right, there's a little bit of a high wire act. We go, all right, we're going to make them buy us Monday through Sunday if they want the Friday of their movie. So we went, as the beginning of the year started, they're planning for their summer season. We went back out to the studios and go, all right, here's your proposal for this summer. And they're going like, you can't do that. You're crazy. I can't believe you'd gouge us that way or whatever. I mean, Harry Potter opens on June 15th, so can I have that week? I need to get that week because Fox has got another movie. So suddenly there was this land grab, and it worked, and it was great. And we started leveraging our homepage on a Friday against all kinds of assets and forced them to buy Monday through Sunday and lots of other things. So the ad revenue took off. It was a lot of fun and very gratifying. And today, those of you, we have a lot of people that are in media, you probably know these things, but this is the base platform of the site, and The Great Gatsby released on Friday. So, and this is an ad here as well. I didn't take the full screen. So anyway, the key lessons for Fandango, as I thought about it, and for you guys to think about as well, is the dual revenue stream. So this is my visual with a guy with two pistols. By the time I left in about 2009, the ad revenue had caught up to the ticketing revenue, so it was about 50-50. And we made good money off of the ticketing, obviously. To this, I've been gone a couple of years, so advertising may have even surpassed it in terms of the demand and everything like that. So obviously, as you think about your startups and you have a primary way that you're going to make your money, as you become successful, you're building successes in different ways. Thinking about another way to get revenue in there is a no-brainer. You obviously need to do that. And this is what the dual revenue stream is really, I think, what made us get successfully sold to Comcast. I was there 6 years. It was about year 4 that Comcast came courting. We actually changed our leadership, which is a bit of a story as well. A gentleman named Chuck Davis was the one who came in, and he brought in another team. We didn't have a CFO at the time, so he brought in another CFO, a guy named Dan Murray, who's actually the CFO at Machinima right now. And so he set us up to go to market, and the dual revenue stream had a lot to do with that. Because as you know, Comcast is not really a commerce company, they are a media company. So the fact that we were generating great revenue on the advertising side made sense. They also had a couple of fledgling websites. They certainly had websites for their television properties, but we were an original start from scratch website, and they were very interested in our talent as well, including myself, who built the team out. So as a part of that acquisition, they wanted us to all stick around for a while. So with a great deal of pride, I feel like they learned a lot from this acquisition. It's now a part of NBC. So anyway, those are the three. There's several, as I mentioned, and some of the ones that I worked for that did not work. You learn a lot from your failures or things that do not succeed. But those are the three. I've given you a couple of lessons along the way, but there's some that are recurring themes that I want to continue to share with you. And this will get into selling. We learned a little bit about the different types of companies you have, but some of them will necessitate an outside sales team, and some will not. And I think even in the bio about what I was going to speak about, I was thinking about the difference between your presentation and trying to get revenue, trying to get investing in your company, versus now time to go out and see customers. And I actually do believe it is different. There's a lot of similarities. Yeah, you've got to be prepared, you got to get ready, everything. But when it's time to go talk to customers, what this visual is showing is the importance of listening, okay? And that may be self-evident to you, but I've built a lot of sales organizations. I've hired a lot of salespeople. The most important communication skill is listening. And in this day and age with the internet and the access you have to information, it actually expands to the need to do your homework before you get in there. In my startups, I've worked for a lot of the CEOs directly, and I've gone on sales calls with the CEO, and they get so excited about talking about their company that they're not tuned in to how important it is to confirm things about the business the business of the person we're calling on, and reinforce that before you ever start talking about you and your product. Because they actually don't care, particularly if you have a product that is innovative and new and misunderstood in the marketplace. The Weather Channel is a great example of that. They were excited about ESPN, MTV, CNN, and the Weather Channel, no, I don't get it. So we had to work very hard. And you did that, and you do that to this day by knowing their business. When you approach them, you don't say, I got a really cool idea, and you should give me a meeting and listen to it. Okay? That's the way a lot of people do it. I have a really cool idea, please give me a meeting. It doesn't work that way. And we all have stories about approaching maybe even investors, and you can't break through to them. You need to talk to them about their business. There's another cartoon here that I love, and it's all about understanding what keeps the king up at night and drives him crazy, and why he is or is not successful. And so as you think about your customer list and who are going to be the best people to buy this, and I do come from the media space, so what are the advertisers that will love this audience the most? And then you go attack them, but you've got to talk to them about their business and what they're trying to do in order to get that meeting. So I pulled this cartoon up to make one point, and I ended up finding a whole bunch of different things in here about sales and also about the incumbent not being able to see what's going to happen. So obviously this salesman has come up with a machine gun, which would probably have been quite effective during the medieval times, mowing some people down. And he's sold it to these underlings, probably soldiers or something, and they go, wow, this is great, we want one of these machine guns, this will be awesome. And so the king comes flying out of his tent with his sword, the way he's done things forever, and the underlings say, hey, there's a great idea, and he's gone. So there's part of the message in selling, one of the most basic fundamentals in selling, is you need to find the decision maker, okay? That's, again, probably stating the obvious, but it's not as easy as you think. You need to find the decision maker, you need to find the person that actually holds the purse strings. because you can spend a lot of time talking to the two soldiers and they cannot make a decision. Now sometimes the king is nice enough to return your email or your phone call. He says, okay, yeah, I think you have a good idea. You need to call Bob and Sam. Bob and Sam will take care of you for you. So you meet with Bob and Sam. They have no ability to make any decisions, but you need to meet with Bob and Sam anyway. And then ask Bob and Sam a whole lot of questions about the king and what does the king care about, and how might I be so bold as to ask Bob and Sam how I might get a meeting with the king. So there's a lot going on in that. So listening, finding the right decision maker. When you approach them, you are talking to them about their business. Okay? You're not talking about your business until you're ready to, you've identified a need they have and you have a great solution for them. If you don't have a great solution, you shouldn't have gotten a meeting with them. So the next is a tangent away from selling. Some of you may be familiar with this matrix. This is about, I was thinking, one of the points I was going to make is about priorities. I have a concept, priorities and avenues of least resistance. That's a sales term. You prioritize who you're going to go after. You start banging away, and certain categories are just not responding. Move on, go to another category, priorities and avenues of least resistance. And then I started thinking about how hard we're all working. We're just working crazy hard. And this is a great concept I was taught a long time ago. I think it was while I was at the Weather Channel. So this is a matrix, and this is about where you spend your time, where you are working, how hard you're working, and where does it fall in these buckets. Is it not? Well, let's start in quadrant one. Is it important, urgent? Is it important, not urgent? Is it not important but urgent, or is it not important but not urgent? So take a minute to think about what consumed your day today or yesterday or this week. Because you can actually, take this matrix, and I actually encourage you to do this. And at the end of a week, or during the week, during 1 week, just write down in each box, make it big enough and take the color out of it. And so write down at wherever you are in your box what you're doing and where it falls. So where do you think, where did most of you spend your time, you think? Three. Okay, urgent but not important.
Yeah.
Really?
Phone calls. Yeah.
Phone calls, okay. Who else? Anybody else want to make a comment where they spend their time? One. Right. It's important. This is typically where most of it falls. And that typically...
Yeah, that's where you want us to. I think this guy's being more honest. Like, the
Well-
truth is, a lot of us probably do spend time
Right.
with but want to spend time
Right.
with one.
Right. Well, and the worst could be 4, right? This is, I don't know what this is. Time with your family or friends or whatever is important too. But this whole matrix is actually to get you to think about spending more time in quadrant 2. Because quadrant 2, believe it or not, what you're doing right now, and I hope you're getting something out of it, is about quadrant 2, because you're taking some time away from what drives you crazy and what you're doing with all the time, and you're learning something, hopefully from me and from other people you meet tonight in your networking. So I will just leave you with this and say, if you write some stuff out, think about it. What can you do? You probably can't reduce this as much as you'd like, but try to spend more of your time over here, okay? You, as the founders, creators of these great companies that you've got put together, you need to be thinking strategically. You need to be thinking about what's going to happen. I know that's hard to fathom a year from now, 2 years now, 3 years from now, or even next month, next quarter. So planning, strategic planning is where you are in that quadrant. Okay. The next thing is back to my slide about team building. And so the next thing I want to talk about is the importance of hiring and building out your team. And certainly we could talk all day about that. There's great resources out there. What I will share with you from my experiences is that I've worked for lots of different startups, and when it worked and it was effective, it was a fantastic machine, and there were people with various backgrounds and different roles contributing all to the same direction. And I was part of that, certainly the most recent one with Fandango. But you've got to work very hard to get the hiring part of that right. And I encourage you to have a process for that. A lot of you may not be in the stage you can fathom starting to hire people. You probably, many of you, a company of one, you may need to be even looking for a partner to come in with you or whatever. But as you become wildly successful, you're going to need to start hiring people. It'll be the most expensive thing you do. And if you get it wrong, it's even more expensive. And believe me, you will get it wrong. I'm emphasizing a process, a methodical way about going about your hiring and what you want to do. And then the human element kicks in and there's nothing you can do about it, right? So that's actually why you should have a good process, read some books, get some consultants that will help you with the whole hiring process. But as much as you can formalize that process, you will be more successful, and your chances of hiring the right person and getting them in the right position will make sense. This is another cartoon I loved about, thinking about who am I going to hire and what is the role they're going to play in my company, not just which office they get or whatever. And I played that role too. I played, obviously hiring me was a part of the puzzle in these startups, but then I started hiring people, putting them in New York, putting them in Chicago. Is it the right person? They're going to be working remotely. So there are lots of different ways you need to go about that. In my hiring, I would actually have scorecards, because when you're in a fast hiring mode, you're going to end up interviewing a lot of people, and the first person of 10 you end up hiring for a particular position may be the right one, and you don't realize it till you've interviewed the other 9. And so you've got to remember everything about that person to be, again, as I say, methodical about it. The other interesting point about the hiring process, how many people read the book Moneyball? A couple? How many saw the movie? A lot more saw the movie. It was a great movie. When it came out, I did not see it in the theater. It came out on DVD. I said, I want to see that one. And I said, well, let me read the book first. I am a baseball fan, but not a diehard. I'm not in a fantasy league or anything like that. But as I started writing it, I kept writing down all these notes related to hiring. Because if you don't know the story about this is Billy Beane. He's played by Brad Pitt in the movie. He works for the Oakland Athletics, who are stingy, don't have the payroll that the New York Yankees have, or even the Dodgers have. Dodgers bought a lot of people, and there's an interesting story in that, because the people the Dodgers bought are not doing so well. And so he started and he was a great player, but he had a great mind for it. I believe he went to Stanford. He started tracking all kinds of statistics on players that nobody else did, and started bringing in these players that had not really been found by other people. They may have been squandering in the farm leagues, or squandering on another team and wasn't doing well. And so he got this whole methodical process about tracking them, and had great success. He's not won a World Series, but if you read the book, he had great successes in that. And so I started writing down so many things about my own hiring process, because as a startup, you probably are not going to be able to steal a management position, your head of ad sales, from Google or Facebook, right? You're going to have to find that rising star. You're going to have to find, to toot my own horn a little bit, you're going to have to find somebody who likes the startup environment and is willing, because there's a lot of people who can be very successful at big companies, Google, Yahoo, whatever. Yahoo's different matter, Google or Facebook, and they don't do so well in a startup. They need more stability, more structure to come in. So you got to be careful about who you hire. I believe, again, to my horn, that you've got to get some key positions, and if you need a sales team to go take your product to market, your leader in sales is pretty critical. But keep that in mind as you're moving forward in hiring. Make sure that they're the right fit as you're building out these teams. Back to the lacrosse team picture, you need to get it all pulled together correctly.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, what kind of questions do you ask as far as identifying somebody that likes the startup environment? Because in my experience, I find people that's like, oh yeah, I love it, but they may be just like gunning to get into a company. They may not exactly know it.
Yeah.
Or some don't have enough experience to really fully understand it. I'm curious what kind of questions.
Right. Well, I think obviously you're going to look at their background, whether if they're coming from. This one goes back to the Weather Channel too. I would interview people from CNN or ESPN that wanted to make a move for whatever reason, and they weren't right for us, and we weren't right for them. That would be in their minds a step down to go to the Weather Channel. So you need obviously to look, and you can see from their resume. But other things I think you would ask is look at, even if you look at their college career. And other activities that they did. Were were they involved in a philanthropic organization where they were busting, everybody's volunteering, and a lot of charity work. It is a lot like a startup, right? Volunteers doing things for not a lot of money. So you might look at that, and it'd be a bizarre question to ask them. So have you ever, because they might not put it on their resume.
Right.
They may not realize that that's important. So you might say, have you ever worked for a charity? And also that's probably a pretty good person, probably pretty grounded, and probably somebody you'd like to have in your family or at your company. So I hope that helps.
Dan,
Yeah, go ahead.
along with that question, what percent of your hires would you say you go on your gut, like that first impression you get right when you shake their hand or when you sit down with them? Because I'm sure a lot of that goes with, there's only so much that you could deduce from what's on paper versus what your gut is, and someone that you're done interviewing and you think that person rubbed you the wrong way.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it, but you need to do some background work for the good or the bad, for throwing them out or hiring them after one interview and move as fast as you possibly can. Both of those have certain risks. You throw out somebody that's the next CEO of your company or whatever. So I think I do believe that you've got to have some process in place to support your instincts. I think because back to the scorecard, I was going to throw out my scorecard, and sometimes I would weight things based on what I really wanted in the role, and maybe the type of selling that we were doing at the time. But I usually had a line in there in terms of the scorecard of gut, and it just said that on there. And I would weight that in certain ways, whether I wanted my gut to be the main call or not. But and also as you build your organization, it's important that you confide in your other leadership about that. Hirings, and part of my answer is, it sucks when you get it wrong. It just does. It's not good for them. It's not good for you. It wastes money and time. And you will get, no matter how great you are at hiring, no matter how great your company is, you're going to get some wrong. This is the human element. For whatever reason, it just doesn't work. So I do believe you need to reinforce the gut with a couple of other instincts. Any other questions? Keep them firing. Okay. This is actually the last point I was going to make, and this is about measurement. And I come from sales, so our success and failures is extremely transparent in sales. You're either hitting your goals or you're not. So I am a measurement kind of person, but I learned a lot even back at the Weather Channel in the early days about research. And today, in the media space, it's all about data. As a matter of fact, I'll jump to this. I read this morning. This is May 14th. This is an Ad Age. This guy, Stuart Pratt, is the CEO of Sapient Nitro. That is an agency that specializes in data management, using data to find your customers, all that, which is huge in the internet space these days. And he has a philosophy degree. And so Ad Age was interviewing him and talking about, well, how does your philosophy degree work? But I thought it was interesting. It says, big data techniques can help us find the signal within the noise, but we still need a human hand to interpret and act upon that signal. So he's making some interesting things, a little bit back to your question too, that there is a human element in all the data that's going on. My point about the measurement though is measure everything about your business that you can. There's a great expression that is, you cannot change what you have not measured. Okay, you probably heard that. But it's so true, you go like, this isn't working right, but you have no idea. I have another expression that I think I coined, which is called non-cognitive success. So you're in year 2 of your startup, or year 1, and one aspect of it is wildly successful, and you have no idea why. So, wow, it's great. How's it going? Oh, we're doing this and that, and it's going great, and we're making a lot of money. Well, why is that? Well, I don't know. And I actually use that in interviewing as well. When I'll have salespeople, and I say, oh yeah, I was salesman of the year just 2 years ago in my company or whatever. And I say, oh really? That's fantastic. Why were you the #1 salesperson? Oh well, I don't know. I think I worked harder than other people. They really don't know. I go, so when you're successful, you need to know it, and measuring is a huge part of that. And little things that you think may not matter could end up being a big factor in your success later. And if you measure it from the beginning, you start to see trends. It may help you even decide, all right, we're going to pivot here and go a different direction. So measurement is key. And data is a big deal now because of all the tools you have available to you on the internet. I'm now going to just summarize. That is the end of my remarks. I'm even watching the time. So let's talk about some of the things that I've emphasized. This is the most important and is the fun of why you're here and why you work with Amplify. And that is, I have an idea. Or as a consumer, I see something that is just not being done as well as I think it could be. And it is almost surely because the people that are there making a lot of money don't realize that it's got to change, or can't see that this new technology is going to change what they're doing. So I just encourage you to keep feeding that and pursuing those ideas, because you will be able to see what others cannot, and that's why you're here as an entrepreneur. Again, we talked about Rolling Stone, MTV, Sony. Why Sony, who dominated the market in portability with music, couldn't come up with digital music and file sharing. Competition is good. It's healthy, actually. Be ethical, be legal, but compete like a mad person. Go at it. Benchmark your competition. Know why they are successful, and know where their weakness. There's a thing called the SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Do it, and your threats are the competition, and you learn from them, right? I mean, think of the competitive space with Microsoft and Apple and what was learned there, and they steal ideas. They don't steal, they observe and legally say, all right, that was pretty cool, let's build on that and do something better. And then the underdog role, you are underdogs for the most part. I don't think anybody's going to start in a dominant position with your startup. So relish in that, feed off the energy of that, because it's a lot of fun when you succeed out of the underdog role. We talked back to these visuals. Remember, find the decision maker as you start selling your product, not to investors, but to somebody who really can buy your product, loves it, even if it's retail or whatever. You have got to talk to them about their business and what you will do to help their business be better. Or if it's a consumer product, to make their quality of life better. Don't you just hate it when this happens? Well, I've got this cool thing here, it might help you, and you probably hate it when this happens. And then listening. As you consider a sales team and hiring even your first entry-level salesperson, or much less your leader, they've got to be a great listener, and that's really, really important. We talked about spending your time. Try to spend more of it with your strategic thinking. If you can, get into quadrant 2, measure it all. And then the hiring, so critical, building out that great team that works together. The sports metaphor is a good one. And that is it. My phone number's here, email address, and would love to entertain any questions. Thoughts, questions? Go ahead.
In response to your slide about getting to the decision maker and the importance of that, can you share some tips you found along your way in terms of a good way to reach the decision maker?
Well, what's interesting is sometimes the higher up you get, the more willing they are to meet with you. So don't be afraid to go after them. But once again, they are very busy people, so you're not going to succeed if you say, I got a good idea, please give me some time next Wednesday to listen to it. You need, again, to show them that you understand his business and that you're not going to waste their time. I use that line actually a lot in emails. I will say something about their business and say, I have something that might help you do such and such better. Can I come by for 20 minutes? I promise you I won't waste your time. The other is working. A lot of times you get excited about finding a prospect, and you get their name and your number, and I'm calling them now because I'm a hard-working salesperson. Reality, you need to do a lot of homework, because if you screw it up the first time you try to reach them, then they know who you are, their assistant knows who you are, whatever, they're not going to take your call. So you may get them. The other is you try all types of communication, including snail mail, phone calls, the internet, of course. And you pick up the phone and you get through to them. You've got about 10, 15 seconds to let that guy know you know about his business. So one of the things I do is, if I will study a company, or there's a company that I'm trying to get a meeting with, there's all these tools in Google. You can mark them to send you stories about their company, and great salespeople do this. And then when you get an article, you send it to them. You don't ask them for a meeting. You don't ask them anything. You say, hey, I saw you guys were written up in the Wall Street Journal. That's very exciting. Good luck with the so-and-so. and you send them that article. And you send it at 6 a.m. in the morning when you get up or something like that. Now, if I have a lot of customers on the East Coast or whatever, but send it. I used to get really mad, like it's noon in the afternoon, I haven't looked at whatever my resources are, and I look at it and I go, wow, that's a great article. And now I'm late at sending to him. I want to be the first one to send him that story. And you do that maybe 5 times over 2 or 3 weeks or even a month, and then you hit him with, hey, I noticed you guys are doing this. I noticed in that story in the Wall Street Journal that you're doing this. We have a way that could help you do X. Is there a chance I can meet with you, or is there somebody on your team that I could talk to? And persistence is important too. If you've laid that groundwork of, about their business, because the guy may never respond. You sent these articles to him, and they're still not responding. He doesn't say thank you or anything. But you never know. He's going like, wow, this guy's persistent, and he's sending me information about my business. So then all of a sudden on the 10th time, where you actually ask, can I talk to you? Can I get a few minutes on the phone? They say, oh yeah, how about Tuesday or whatever. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. Jeff, did you have a question?
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay. Who else? Anybody else got a question? Go ahead, Jay.
So I hear a lot of people say that for startups, the founder cannot sell a product and nobody else can. But I also noticed that the founder doesn't necessarily have the DNA for sales, so to speak. So do you believe in hiring somebody who is probably more experienced in selling your product? Maybe he has techniques or story that's better than your own because you're so flattered by your own passion.
Yeah, obviously that is not going to be a black and white answer. It certainly depends on the background of the CEO and where they came from. But I would maintain that the CEO is better when the time comes to explain how the product will help the customer solve a problem. But actually the first CEO at Fandango, I'll never forget the first call I went on with him. He was so obsessed about the deck we had to put together. And he knew people at the studio. Went to see a very high level person in his studio, which is another tool that the CEO has. The CEO name just in of itself can get you into meetings you didn't think about. But we go in there, and he knew this person, and we had a great conversation. And he even joked at one point, he says, well, we should probably show you this PowerPoint deck, because Dan's going to kill me if we don't, or something like that. I think if you have the right, as the head of sales, I eventually trained the CEO, that first CEO at Fandango, that we need to go in there asking questions or confirming things that we've learned about their business. And this was a studio, so we need to know what their movie releases are, what's coming up, what are they having trouble with, whatever. And you talk to them and you have a great conversation at that level. So I think smart CEOs can be trained the aspect of this particular, and every call is different too. We're going to go on a call, and let me tell you what's going on here. It took me 6 months to get a meeting with this person. They don't believe in us. He's doing me a favor. So we've got to get in there and show him that we've studied his business before we start saying, hey, let me tell you about what we got here, because that just backfires. And typically, that's why I do believe that there is a big difference in talking to the investors and when it's now time to have a meeting with a big buyer for your particular product. You approach that differently. There's some similarities, but you approach that differently. What else? Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
Great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
I'd like to talk to you about more of these pitch meetings to investors.
Yes.
Institutional pitches or high net worth individuals. Which way do you start?
Well, there's people that Amplify probably better qualified to answer that than I am. But I think the approach is the same in that are you asking whether it's an angel investor or an institutional investor?
I'm actually trying to understand the timeline. Say you're taking the Weather Channel and growing it.
Yeah.
Trying to scale it.
Yeah.
How do you go about it? Do you start with private investors and angel funding and then?
Yeah. Well, the Weather Channel was actually launched by a very old newspaper company, Landmark Communications in Norfolk, Virginia. But Launch and Fandango are different because they started from scratch. And the fundamentals, and Jeff may comment and add to this too, is you are initially, it's all about making a decision about how much of your company you want to give away. That's the biggest decision about having other investors come in. So, and actually Amplify is a great starting point. That's what they're about, is helping you in those initial stages. But an angel investor could be a rich uncle or whatever. It all depends on how much money you feel you need to get going. You may, it's about some decisions about, well, we're really going to need this much money to really launch it, but I think that's a risk worth taking because it's going to pay off big on the other end. It's about your business plan and your goals at that stage. Do you want to add anything to
The
that?
market shifts a lot in terms of the approach, but the way the market is right now, it's very hard to go straight to VCs to get money unless you've previously had an exit. You might be able to do that, but for the most part, it's based on stage. So if you're at idea stage, most likely you're going to have to go to your friends and family to get money. There are some incubators, accelerators that will do it. We won't. If you're product stage, then the accelerator kind of world is good. If you're post-product, maybe some customers, maybe some revenue, then the angel and seed money is probably the place to be in the 500 and million. And then if you're, you have north of $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a month in revenue, it varies per business, then, VCs are where you go. It's not always like that, but that's kind of how the market is today. There certainly have been periods where it's like, I've got an idea, okay, give me $10 million, like that period existed, that period will happen again. But I'd say it's kind of trending away from that unless you have historicals as a founder that exited.
Does anybody want to share anything about their company, a nugget that you felt was valuable here and applies to what you're doing? I don't want to put anybody on the spot.
We found this one, we had this, we built the sales team at my last company, and we had this really killer, subsequently I've heard the story from other people, but I didn't know at the time. We had this really killer sales guy who was like a crusher, and he would just like, when I listened to his pitch, I was like just shocked that people actually bought from him because it was just ridiculous. And stuff. Like, he didn't really understand the product, but he was just like, everybody liked it. Anyway, so he got to the point where he was like, he wanted to manage people, and like he wanted to like build a team and like, be the guy, and I was like, okay, fine. So we started like letting him hire people, and two things happened. He stopped selling, and my sales team sucked. He couldn't manage. So I basically double killed myself, and I realized, and he realized too, that like he's just like a closer, but he can't manage it. So
yeah, and
it was definitely a learning.
yeah, and sometimes
trial.
it works. The evolution sales into management, sometimes it doesn't. And what you said happens a lot. And some will fall back and realize, sometimes you can make more money, depending on how your compensation structure is, as an individual seller than you can. Like I've been in situations where typically my money is made by, to use a bad phrase, a pyramid scheme, in the sense that everyone's goals feeds into mine. Well, that's the challenge, and typically would make a lot of money when it hits right. But the whole team has, not the whole team, you could have 4 or 5 performers and a couple not performing and still hit your goals. But that's some of those complexities for sure. Go ahead.
Dan, I've got really a sales question, and this might be helpful for a lot of people. When we reach out to prospects and clients, we start with the marketing, maybe a phone call or two. But what have you found as far as a good time to get someone on the phone, let's say 11:30 on a Tuesday before they get lunch, as they catch up from the weekend, or Friday at 5:15 when the person who screens the call is gone and that person is still there trying to figure out what they need to gather for their weekend and pick up the phone. What's worked for you for getting someone on the phone?
I think the best time to get someone on the phone is the time they will answer it. So and you can find out over time, in sales organizations, we even talk to, you end up at a industry and function and you're talking to your competitor now, or somebody at least is selling you, go, have you ever had a meeting with Bob Jones, over at so-and-so? And you go, no, he's really hard to meet with. You start trading war stories there. Yes, varying the time that you call, or the point I was gonna make there is you might find out that he comes into the office really early, that he's got family, so he goes home by 5 or whatever, or he's there on the weekends and he'll pick up his phone or whatever. But I will caution you, as I said before, you got to be ready with 10 seconds of relevance when you do get him to answer that phone. And Otherwise, he'll probably be nice to you, but you haven't made any progress with it. So preparation about what you're going to say, and quote some article that he had, or quote that person if you actually got through to that. So I would say you vary it and see if he picks up.
But B2B sales is different than B2C sales. Like that answer to that question, B2C sales, there's much more data to support times and days and stuff like that around B2C sales than B2B sales.
How so?
Well, like our clients sold exclusively to consumers, mortgage, insurance, debt,
Yeah.
education services, and we did lots and lots of studies around time of day, frequency of call, day
Yeah.
of week, and we found that there were days based on product and even some demo on the customers that made a big impact on conversion.
Yeah.
But that didn't play into B2B because it was much more unpredictable at B2B what they did. Like a business person could be very different than another business person
Right.
doing the exact same job.
Right. Again, tracking. He tracked when the success was
Data.
happening. Data. Yeah. Somebody else? Go ahead, Jake.
Another question,
Go
actually.
ahead.
Have you ever encountered a situation where you have a really hot lead, and then all of a sudden this goes cold? I mean, you get a meeting with
Never
them,
happened.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And what sucks is when you don't know why
Right, and they
it
don't-
went cold.
Yeah. They don't
Yeah, again, we live in a day and age, it's the good news and the bad news. As a salesperson, you have lots of different ways you can communicate with somebody. The bad news is everybody else has a lot of different ways to communicate with someone. So decision makers are just inundated with information. So, and I'll turn it to a positive. It's amazing how I have a lot of scenarios where you're trying to break through to someone, and or right, you had that good meeting and they're just not returning, and finally you get them on the phone and they're just nice as can be and so apologetic. Oh, Dan, I owe you a phone call. It's terrible. I apologize. Look, why don't you come in on Thursday and I'll get you caught up and everything. We can go have a drink or whatever it is. And so you can't give up either. Well, I take that back. You can't give up. It's back to my priorities, prioritization avenues of least resistance. If it's a really important prospect, in my ad world, a major brand, I used to chase Target all the time in Minneapolis, and they were hard to get meetings with. But I would never give up because it was a great brand. I thought it made so much sense for whatever I was doing at the time. So you sort of measure that. Is it on a scale of 1 to 10? Because you can do this. You can, again, tracking, methodical. Is it a 10 or a 1 in terms of priorities as a prospect? If it's a 10, and you can make drastic change and change the salesperson. Maybe for some reason the decision maker just hates the salesperson. So Bob, I'm sorry, we're not making any progress. Sam's not going to have that. You get Sam's account over here. Let's just switch accounts. And that can be after a year. We're just not making any progress. So you got to make tough decisions and switch the accounts around. So it happens all the time. Yeah.
You bring up the many different ways to contact people, and I'm sure you've worked with a bunch of different kind of tech companies, stuff like that. Technology's changed. Have you found any technology, maybe like the internet world, as we got like email, we got LinkedIn, social networking, all that kind of stuff? Any of those tools that have been truly helpful for you?
Well, LinkedIn is extremely valuable just because of the information you can find out about the person you're calling on, right? So I preached a lot about find out about their company, what they're doing, but by all means, before you contact somebody, look them up on LinkedIn. What did they do? They may have gone to your college. You never know. And so you can, at the right time, make that connection. You gotta be careful about appearing to stalk some decision maker. The one I still believe in that surprises some people, I actually believe snail mail can be very effective because nobody gets snail mail. And sending a gift, you gotta do the right thing and not be too crazy about it. But I don't know, you find out that they're a hockey fan. Entertaining is a whole nother category as well. But you could send them something, an article, because he's a fly fisherman or whatever, send him an article about fly, I don't know, whatever it is. But snail mail, having something show up, that somebody says, yeah, you got a letter, or you got a FedEx, or whatever. What the hell was that? You know, look at it. Handwritten thank you notes are another one. You finally get the business, you need to say thank you. And yes, you could do it through email. If you send them a handwritten thank you note, this is a little while ago, but I remember writing somebody a handwritten thank you note, and I was later in his office. He had it pinned to his board. I think he showed it to his team, and I go like, this sales guy sent me a thank you note for buying his product, whatever, buying some advertising. So, yes.
Did you find that there was almost a critical mass at which people were coming to you as often as you were going to them? You were mentioning the Monday through Sunday time slot.
Yes.
And that would get gobbled up real quickly. And this may speak to Jeff's point on B2B and as well as like time of call. If you're building something that's more gravitational than you are launching a rocket.
Yeah.
Did you find that to be the case with Fandango?
Yeah. Well, that question spawns a whole lot of comments in about the difference between what I call selling and order taking. And again, as you saw from my career, I've been with a lot of underdogs. And I relish that. Well, actually, I love that environment. And I would interview some people that might have worked for ESPN or CNN or Yahoo at the time, or Facebook or whatever. And I dig into whether they really could sell or not. And a lot of them could not. So, and this is a weird thing to say, but if your product is on fire and the demand is so high, you probably don't need a sales organization. And a sales organization is needed when you have a great idea and you know it solves a problem, but they don't really know it. And marketing or advertising will help to a degree, but and it could be a complicated product as well. You need somebody who can get a meeting, or even just initially the phone conversation, and say, we've got a really cool idea that I think is going to help you with this particular problem. So to answer with a Fandango example, yeah, we got to a point where we were pretty much a must-buy with the studios. They loved us, and we had great relationships. And my sales team were fighting over the studios. And some of the new hires didn't get a studio. And so what we tried to do was at one point there was a dominant person in LA who had been handling the studios for a long time. We started to dole them out to other people. But at Fandango, there's the other reality about a sales organization. Every year is a new year and a new budget. You keep pushing your sales organization, right? So as we started getting great revenue from the studios, I would say in my day it was about 50% of our goal. And the last 50% was a whole lot harder. We had to go after automobile, and we had success with this, but it was a much harder pitch to an automobile, to the credit cards. Before I left there, I actually did a huge deal with the credit card. In fact, we were a commerce site, so it made sense. So anyway, you have to, there's hiring implications, there's the goal setting as well. You could do something crazy in compensation and go, all right, for every movie studio dollar, your compensation is this. For all non-studio dollars, your compensation is this. So you incent your sales team to do the behavior that you want them to. So compensation structures is a whole other thing as well. Great questions. Anybody else? I have lost track of time. So do we need to wrap up, or we?
If there are any more other questions, we can take them. But otherwise,
Okay.
They can talk to you after too. I'm sure.
Yeah, I will stick around.
Cool. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
No problem.